here, and then I'm going to present. So I'm going to present one of my windows because essentially the best thing about Google Drive is that it's available through your email. So what we're talking about today is Google Drive Basics, and essentially what that means is everything I can tell you in less than an hour about Google Drive, because it is a pretty dense application, but it's very simple to use once you know how you want to use it. It's very customizable in that way. So if you're asking yourself, what is Google Drive? It's essentially like an online filing cabinet. You just put your files into this online cloud so you could access them from anywhere you have an internet connection. So that includes your phone. They have a Google Drive app. It includes any computer that you can log into. As long as you can get to your email, you can get to Google Drive. So that's pretty cool. It's nice, especially if you have like documents you want to work on at home or at work, and you don't want to have to put them on a flash drive or VPN. You can just put it on Google Drive, and it kind of does the same thing. So we'll talk about that a bit. And then probably the best part about Google Drive is that it's easily accessible through our Marywood emails. So everyone has a Google Drive. They're free. And as far as I know, because we're like an institution, a G Suite school, we have unlimited storage in Google Drive, though I'm sure I will be proved wrong if someone puts a lot of stuff in their Google Drive. But I know personal Google Drives have 15 like megabytes or gigabytes rather, and I think we have unlimited. So it's pretty good to hold a lot of things, including videos, photos, documents, what have you. So I'm in my email right now. If you wanted to access it from your email, you would just click, after it refreshes, you will just click on the Google Apps icon, which is this waffle icon in the top right. And then you click on Drive. And it should just open up in a new tab. And you'll see up in the top right which drive you're in. If you have multiple Marywood accounts, it's good to make sure you know which drive you're in. So I'm in the workshops one. You'll also see your little profile picture. Usually whenever you access a drive from your email, it is that account's drive. So if I went into my Kovaleski email and opened Drive from there, it would open the Kovaleski drive. So different drives, different files, different people. So now we're in Google Drive, and when you first get in, you see My Drive, which is like your home base. This is essentially your desktop, if you think about it that way. It's where anything you've created goes, anything you've uploaded goes, and anything you've moved over from the Shared With Me section that you could see over here on the left. Anything you've moved over from there, anything you've created, and anything you've uploaded is here in My Drive. So I have a couple folders here. They'll usually be at the top of your page. You can color code them so you can pick them out easy if you have a lot of folders. If you wanted to do that, you just right-click it and change the color. But folders are always on the top, and documents are always right below. And if this looks a little different than your Drive, that's because there are two ways to view Drive. This is the grid view, so it gives you little previews of every file. But there's also list view, which you just see up here in the top right, and you click it, and it gives you more of a familiar organization. Kind of looks like your PC when you go in to find a document. It has little icons to indicate what type of file it is, whether it's a Google Doc, like this little icon, or a Google Sheet, like this one, or a Google Form that's purple. For different Microsoft Office applications, you'll see like a W for Word and E for Excel, things like that. So it's pretty obvious to know which ones are which. But this one's nice, this list view, because it shows you when things were last modified. So if you are working a lot in Google Drive and you want to know the last time you updated something, the list view will tell you that right off the bat. So that's pretty cool. So for example, I edited this Google Drive Basics Notes document at 12:55. So about 15 minutes ago, and it was modified by me, which is an indication of another cool feature of Google Drive that we'll talk about in a few minutes, where you can share files with other people and work on them together. So if I shared this file with someone, it would have someone else's name if they edited it last, but because it was me, my me is here. So that's the cool thing about list view. You can see that last modification and actually also who owns it. So that's pretty cool, especially when you're sharing files. But I like grid view personally just because it gives me previews of things so I know what it actually is. Because when you're creating Google Docs on the fly, if you just want to write some notes down quick, sometimes you don't get a really great comprehensive title down too quickly. So having a preview of your documents is nice so that you know what it actually has before opening it. So that's my drive essentially. It shows you all of your files and your folders that you've created or uploaded or moved from the shared with me section, which is a great segue into what that actually is. So shared with me is another section in your drive, which is everything that has been shared with you either directly or indirectly. So if you're looking at this section and wondering what all this stuff is, it's probably because you've seen it in an email. So maybe it was an image in an email that was sent by the university, or maybe you accessed our EdTech website. We have tons of documents that are just embedded on that website. Because it's a Google site, it shares all of these documents with you. So anything you don't understand or recognize is probably from something you've visited before. And that's why people move things from shared with me to my drive, because it makes it easier to organize. And essentially what they do is create a shortcut from shared with me to my drive. So it's kind of like when you're in Word and you want to make a shortcut of a document to your desktop, it's the same sort of process and same idea. You can do it with folders. So I have 2 folders at the top here. I also have plenty of files, as you can see, so you can do it with any files and any folders that you would like. So say I wanted to create a shortcut to my drive for this enrollment forecasting document. I want to edit it, I want to look at it, instead of finding it and shared with me, I want it easier to locate. So I'm going to right click on it and click Add Shortcut to Drive. And if you are still unsure what that means, there's a little question mark because it is a relatively new feature. It says that shortcuts link to the original, allowing an item to appear in more than one location. So it's still the same document, it just appears in a different area that you can then organize. So if I click Add Shortcut to Drive, I can then choose where in my drive to send it. So I can send it to my drive, and if I had any folders I want to send it to, I could just click on this arrow and select any of my folders. So if I wanted to send this straight into workshop surveys, I can click on that folder and then add a shortcut, but I'm actually not going to put it in a folder. I'm just going to put it in my drive in general. So I'll put add a shortcut, and it tells me when that shortcut has been added. So you don't see any physical difference here in shared with me, but if I go back to my drive, it actually shows the enrollment forecasting doc that I just made a shortcut of with a little arrow to indicate that I made a shortcut of it. So it's not natively in my drive, but now that I've made a shortcut, it's here and accessible, and I can move it wherever I want so that it's easier for me to find next time. So that's pretty cool. If you were curious where the document came from, you can always click on any document or folder and then click on this little eye icon for viewing details. It shows you any details as such as whether it's shared or not, what kind of type of file it is. So right now this is a shortcut, so it tells me that I made a shortcut. Where it's located, so currently it's in my drive. When it was modified, when it was created, anything like that, and any activity. So if this was shared with someone, it would tell me when someone clicked on it, when someone shared it, things like that. So this little details icon is pretty cool because it shows you all that information, but you can always hide it because it does take up a lot of room. So now that I've made a shortcut, you can see that the icons are different, but maybe I want to create something like a Google Doc or upload a file or even create a folder. The easiest way to do that is staying here in my drive and clicking New. It gives you every option under the sun, like creating a new folder, uploading a file, uploading a folder. So you can upload an entire folder from your computer if that's easier. You can create a Google Doc from here, a Google Sheet, a Google Slide, and then if you click on more, you actually can create a Google Form from here, and all of these other random applications. So you can kind of notice from the fact that these are all labeled with Google in front that these all live in your drive because it's a storage unit. So whenever you create a Google form, even if it's from the Forms app, it'll live here in Google Drive. Same with docs and sheets and slides. Even if you create them in these applications, they all live here in Drive. So this is like your home base for everything. So I'm going to create a folder just so I can show you how to organize things, and also how to share a folder, because say you want to create like an archive folder for your class. You want to have a folder full of images. If you want to do like an art display or something, you can then share this folder with a link, and then the students can access all of the images in the folder with just one link instead of linking out all of the photos and images. But that'll make more sense in a couple minutes. So I'm going to click on folder. And as soon as you do that, you have to name it just so you know what it is. So I'm going to say images, because maybe I just want this to be a folder of images. So I'll create that. It automatically shows up in my drive, and I can double click on it to open. So there's nothing in here. I just created the folder. So I can then drop files here from my file explorer, or I can use the new button to upload files or even create them directly in here. But because I named it images, maybe I want to upload some files. So I'm going to click on File Upload, and it'll bring up my File Explorer. And I actually already have it open to the folder I want, but I'll show you how to navigate just so you know for when you do it yourself. I'm going to click on my location on the left, and then it shows me all of the things in that location. So if I want to upload this document, I can double click on it. It starts the upload in the bottom right, and then it shows up here.
That didn't show on the screen.
Oh, it didn't? Oh, okay. You know, I'm going to restart the presentation and make it entire. Thanks, Kevin. I totally forgot I didn't do that. I did something different. Never very. I'm going to do that one more time. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So file upload, like I said, it brings up the file explorer, which you should now be seeing. So I'm going to, yeah, can you see it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. So now this makes more sense. So like I said, I'm going to click on the location on the left. For most people, that's going to be desktop, documents, pictures. They're all here on the left. And that opens up everything that is on or in that location. So I am going to click on this other document, give it a nice little double click. It shows a little upload down in the bottom right, and then it shows up here in the folder. So that's pretty much how you file upload. It's really just a couple clicks, and it's like attaching something to an email. It's pretty much the exact same thing. If I wanted to upload an entire folder, it's a very similar process. You click folder upload, click on your location, and then click on your folder. If you double click it, it's going to open it and try to look for more folders. So what you're going to want to do is just click on the folder once so that it is named down here in the folder field, and then click upload. And then it's going to ask if you want everything in that folder uploaded, and I have 4 files in there. So I'm going to click upload. It adds the 4 here in this little progress bar. And then once it's done, it has a green check mark. And you can see there's also a folder in here now. So we have a subfolder within the larger folder called images. And it retains the same name that it had on your computer, so it's pretty easy to identify. And you probably noticed when I hover over these upload areas down here, it actually lets you go to the folder location even if you're somewhere else in Drive. So that's pretty cool as well. You can always X this out if it's in your way, and then you can double click on your folder to see what you've uploaded. So pretty easy way to upload a whole bunch of things. That also counts for any folders with documents in them, videos. It should all work about the same. So I mentioned earlier about sharing folders, and sharing documents is also something you can do. But I want to show you how to share a folder, just because it's pretty straightforward. You can right-click on any folder you want to share, whether that is an umbrella folder like images, or even a subfolder like this Google Drive example. You can share either of them. The only difference is that if I share this folder called Google Drive example, it's going to share all 4 of these images with whoever I send the link to. Whereas if I send, or rather if I share the images folder, it's going to share this folder as well as these 2 documents. So it's going to share everything within that folder, even if it includes other folders. So that's something to keep in mind. If I wanted to get a link for this Google Drive example folder, I would right-click on it and then get shareable link right here. And it tells you about the link sharing options if this is one of your first times doing it. I think it might even show you that every time you try to share, but I'm going to click on Got It to get rid of that message. Down here under Get Link, it shows you a link, but you do need to do some extra work. There is an audience here, and then once you change the audience, it'll also have permissions assigned to it. So right now we're restricted, so that means that anyone who is added to this Share with People and Groups section can open with the link. So if I shared this with Kevin Kuna, then I would have him in this folder, and anyone who is not him would not be able to open it if I gave them this link. So only Kevin can open it with this link. So that's an example of that. But if I clicked on restricted, there are two other options you can choose from. The first one is Marywood University Gmail, which only applies to faculty and staff. So if you are sending this link out to people with email that has maryu.marywood.edu, then they'll be able to open it. But unfortunately, this does not count for students because students are in a different email domain. They have the m.marywood ending. So you have to change it to anyone with the link if you want students to be able to view this folder or even a file. It's the same kind of idea. So once you set that audience, you then have the option for access. So you can change the access. By default, it's viewer. So anyone I share this link with can open it, but they can only view whatever I have inside. So that's the ideal setup for anything you're sharing with students, unless you want them to collaborate in a folder and upload their own things, in which case you would change them to editor, where they can organize, add, and edit files to the folder. So it tells you that ahead of time, and it will double check with you on the bottom here. It kind of gives you a summary of your audience and your permissions that you set. So it'll say anyone on the internet with this link can edit, but sign in is required. So that is an option if you want to collaborate with students on a folder full of images or files, but usually viewer is good enough. There are some faculty I know who use Google Drive to have their assignments submitted to them. So for that sort of situation, you wouldn't do a link so much as you would do a share with people in groups like I did for Kevin. So the difference is that if you share with people in groups, it's more specific. So if I just wanted to share this folder with one student, so I'm going to put in my Marywood email. If I wanted to share it with this one student, only this student would have access to this folder, and I can choose whether it's an editor or a viewer. So if I want them to be able to upload their own files, then this would be the perfect chance to make them an editor. If I just want them to view this, then it would be a viewer sort of situation. But this would be a good idea if you had a folder like for each student that you wanted them to upload their papers to. If you weren't using Moodle or Brightspace, you can add them as the only person you're sharing it with so that they can edit that folder, and then you do that for every other folder as well. So whatever student you have labeled for a folder, you would share with that student. It's a bit of a convoluted way to do things technically, especially when you have Moodle and Brightspace that have assignment areas, but it is an option if you are not interested in using either of those. But I'm going to cancel on this. Pretty much when you share a folder, it's going to be the same process as when you share a file. The only difference is that you have one less option for sharing. So when you go to share a file, and I'll show you that in a couple seconds, you will have the comment option, which means that they can suggest changes to files. But because we're sharing a folder, it's a bit different. So you can only edit or view. Though once you share with someone, you have a couple options after that. So I shared with Kevin before. Now that when I click on the editor access, it gives me the option to give temporary access. So I can choose that and choose the time of expiration if I wanted to. I could also make them the owner if they were an editor, and then I could remove them entirely. So you have those options. You can change the permissions at any time. Because you are the owner, you have complete control over who has access to this file, this folder. So you can remove them at any time, just make sure that you save as well. So that's pretty much sharing folders. I do want to point out that sharing files is pretty much the exact same process. It's just a tad different. So I'm going to look at this file right here, which happens to be a Google file. So technically in Google Drive, you can share any file you want. It's just that the editing access gets a little weird when it's something like a PDF, where you can't really edit them without Adobe Acrobat. And Google doesn't really play with Adobe that well. So all that to say, you can really only edit / comment on things like Microsoft Office documents or Google files. So anything like a Google Sheet like this, a Google Doc like this, a Word document, an Excel spreadsheet, PowerPoints, and Google Slides. Those are pretty much the top 6 that you can actually edit and comment on. All other file types, it's kind of iffy. But this is a Google file, so I'm actually going to double click on it, because a nice thing about Google Files and even Word, Excel, PowerPoint files is that there's a share button within it. So if you're working on it and you're like, I need someone to help me with this, I need a bit of commenting from someone else, some feedback, you can be working on it right here and then go right up to the share button and share it with someone else. So it would be the same thing. You just kind of click on the share button and you get those same 2 options. You have share with people in groups and get a link. So now when you add people in groups, you get the option to have them be a commenter. So any comments they have will just be added automatically. So if you think about track changes in Word, it's about the same thing. You get like a green line where they enter stuff, where they make suggestions. You can reject them or accept them as they come in. So that's kind of a nice feature as well. Kevin, I don't know if you want to act as my commenter just to show what that looks like. If not, that's totally fine. I'm going to choose not to notify, or no, actually I will, just so you get an email, but I'll notify Kevin and say, thanks for the help. So this will just send them a nice little email alerting them that they have commenting access to this file, and then it shows them the little message I have. So I'm going to send that off. Now that I have added a person, the icon on the share button changes. So before it had a lock because I was the only person who had access. Now it has like 2 people because I shared with another person. I do want to mention real quick, this is also applicable to sharing folders, but if you look at the share with people in groups and look at this little cog icon, you click on it and it gives you 2 extra options. So by default, editors that you add can change permissions and share with anyone they want. And by default, viewers and commenters can see the option to download, print, and copy your file. So if you're okay with those permissions, you can leave them. Just know that they're here, especially if you're adding editors. If you don't want this to be shared with any other people, then you can uncheck that. If you don't care, just leave it as it is. Just want to let you know that it's there. And now Kevin is doing the live collaboration that is such a staple of Google Drive. Because I gave him commenting access, you can see that anything he's typed is in pink because he is labeled in pink. You can see that he's in here too because he's in the top right. So I can actually also chat with him while he's in here without editing the document at all and messing with the formatting. I can just kind of start a little chat and we can talk about the document or talk about any edits that are being made. You can kind of just set up a live chat with anyone in the document. So as I'm going through, since he has commenting access, I can either accept the suggestions he's made or reject them. So if I accept them, they become part of the document. If I reject them, they go away. And another cool thing about the commenting permission is that if you click on this message icon, it shows you all of your past edits from your commenters and whether you accepted them or not. And you can actually also reply to them and kind of like give feedback, like thanks for the suggestion, that's really helpful, or I'm not sure about this word choice, those types of things. And you can see with this chat, this little red dot, and Kevin replied to me. Very kind. So this is just a taste of what the live collaboration can look like. when they are editors, they can just come right in and directly edit things. And viewers can just look at things. They can't do anything else. It's important to know, though, if you do have collaborators, whether they are editors or commenters, there is this last edit section here, which opens the version history. And if I click on this, it'll actually show me the different versions of this document. So earlier today, or even yesterday rather, I created this document on my own personal account. Then I shared it with the EdTech account. And when I click on that, it shows me all the edits that were made, any big edits like words and changes like that. The current version is the one with Kevin, and you can see where he made his edit and where I accepted it. So that's a cool option. If I click on this August 12th version for 1255, that dash is no longer there because it was a previous version before I included Kevin. And if I scroll down, you can see where I added things and where I deleted things. It shows you pretty much the track changes of your document. So you can restore any past versions if you made some changes you are not happy with. But in general, it just kind of shows you the history of your document, which is pretty cool. I'm going to go back to the document. And the other important thing I want to mention about Google Docs is that it automatically saves every time you modify, type, or delete anything. So if you're just going through changing things, it says last edit was seconds ago and that it's saved to Drive. So even if I backspace on that, it's constantly saving, which is super great, especially if you're working on something very long. And even if your Wi-Fi is spotty, it is trying to save at every second. So you don't have to worry about it just losing all of your progress, which is pretty nice. Since we're in a Google file, you'll probably notice that it looks exactly like Microsoft Word, just with a little bit of formatting differences. So it's really kind of familiar, except for the fact that you can go to File, and you can either download this as a different file type, which you can do with Word, but this is a little more accessible and easier to find. You can download it as Word, rich text format, PDF, and then you can also email it directly from here. So if I wanted to email this document as an attachment, or if I wanted to even email the collaborators, which right now just includes Kevin, I can email right from here. I can send myself a copy of it, and then this is automatically attached to the email. So it's pretty cool that you can do that. I think that is a new feature because I haven't seen that before, but it's nice if you don't want to do your document, go back to your email, compose it, attach it, like it's a whole thing. So also very cool. That's pretty much the special things about Google Files in Google Drive. Otherwise, it operates the same as a Word, Excel, or PowerPoint file. And if I went into those, they look vaguely like Excel and PowerPoint, so it's kind of like what you're seeing here, just with less data, because I did a lot in this document here. So I'm going to close out of here. And I'm just looking to see if I forgot anything, because that is pretty much the basic overview of Google Drive. There's plenty more you can do in here, but overall, the basics are my drive and shared with me and those differences between them. Any folders you have, you can like click and drag files into them to organize. You can then share folders or share files, and that's pretty much it. I will say, just because a lot of people make Google Forms, if you do plan on sharing a Google form to like send out to people to fill out, you will not share it in the same way that you do other files. You should probably do that through Google Forms itself. But that's really the only exception to the rule. Otherwise, that's pretty much it for Google Drive. There are some integrations with Gmail, and real quick, I'll show you them since we still have time. If I wanted to compose an email, you'll see at the bottom, on the same line that there is the attachment paperclip, there is the Google Drive insert files. So if you have a file in Google Drive you want to attach, you can just click on this little triangle, and it'll bring up like a mini version of your drive, including all the folders and the shared with me section as well. So if I wanted to include my Google Drive basics notes, I can just double click on that, and it adds it as a Google Drive link. So people could just click on it. But another option to make it look more native to the email, like more like an attachment, would be to click on it once, and then I guess because it's a Google Doc, you can't really attach it. But if it was something else, you can. So if I went into my EdTech documentation and clicked on a PDF, I can then choose to attach it as an actual attachment. So we would insert it, and it looks like a normal attachment for an email. So that's just an example. Are there any questions? I know Kevin is here. If you have questions, Kevin, let me know. But otherwise, I think that's pretty much all I have. Do you have anything?
What about the recent folder there?
Oh, okay. Do you want to look into that?
Yes, please.
All right. So I'll go back to sharing. Pretty much the recent is anything that you have recently clicked on. So I have clicked on that Google Drive's basic notes document, and then I also uploaded these pictures recently. I've uploaded these 2 documents, and I clicked on this Google Drive sharing file. So pretty much anything you've interacted with or uploaded will be in this recent section. It's kind of a different way to organize things.
Is that the same thing for starred?
Yeah, starred actually is a little different because you can actually go through and star files that you want to see more. So if I wanted to star this notes document, I would right click on it, click add to starred, and then it's over here too. So if you have a bunch of things that you want to keep in one place, you don't want to have to bother with folders and things like that, the starred section is a good option. You just right click on anything you want to star, including folders, and just click add to starred. And if you want to remove it, you just remove it. Same way. And trash, now that we're talking about the different sections, the trash section is anything that you've right clicked and hit remove on. So if I went back to my drive and right clicked on this, remove is an option. It temporarily stores it in trash, I believe for 30 days, just like emails and Gmail. They stay for 30 days in trash and then delete forever. But if you wanted to come in here and actually delete things forever, you just right click it and delete it forever. And you can restore anything that you have removed as long as it's in here. So you just right click and then restore, and it goes right back to your drive where it was before. The priority section is new. So we're still kind of exploring what it actually means. But in my experience, it seems like things that you've interacted with a lot. So since I recently clicked on the notes document, it says I edited it just now. I can open it from here. I looked at the Moodle informational form and there's new responses. So that's priority because there's new interaction with the form. I uploaded this today, so it's important because it's new. So things like that. It's a little random how things are created in here, but it's a nice place, especially for forms. If you want to see if there are new responses, it usually tells you in the priority section, especially if you're using a lot of different forms. And then the workspaces area, that's a bit of an advanced feature, but it essentially lets you group things together. It's a bit like folders, except that you can have a workspace for surveys, like it says here, and then you can go in and kind of add surveys to here. But it's kind of very similar to folders, and I haven't discovered what makes it different yet. So those are the different sections. But I think recent is probably going to be very useful, especially if you uploaded things recently. And then starred, if you want to use the star system, that would be very useful too. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
Oh, that was actually perfect, especially the share and how you can share the documents to others.
Oh, yeah.
And folders. I played around with it, but I don't know if I actually share them to the right people in the right way. But those other features,
I understand that.
And view only is probably good because I've sent stuff and people said they never received it. But I think with the email notification, then they have the notification through email that I sent them with them. It's kind of a nice feature.
Yeah, definitely. That does remind me, there is one thing I didn't mention. I talked about sharing Google files. but it's a little bit different for non-Google files. So something like a PDF, that's something I obviously uploaded. It says PDF on here as well. You can right-click it and share it this way, or if you double-click on it, it gives you the preview. You can open with Google Docs, though it will kind of alter the formatting a bit. But if you come over to this kebab menu, it has share in here as well. So it gives you that menu. But something to keep in mind. You can also download things from here and print them, but usually the PDFs, they're just good for viewing in Google Drive. If I go to open it in Google Docs, it's going to be a little bit of a mess. If you have a lot of like images and special formatting, it might not work out, but yeah, like it doesn't look the same. So you kind of learn after a while that PDFs are just not good to edit in Google Drive. They're just good to view in Google Drive and get a link to them, so it's easier for people to find.
Well, the one thing good about it is if you need to copy and paste something out of it from Google
That's
Drive.
true, because the text still retains.
Yeah, because it's an image, like it's a hard image. So if you need to copy something out of it,
that's true. Though it does look a bit ugly.
I know it's stored; it's not the same image. But if you need some information out of it, I don't know how many times I've tried to copy and paste stuff out of a PDF, and I get the whole entire image over onto a Word doc.
Yeah, and it's like, that's not what I wanted.
It's not what I want. I want the whole thing. I just wanted some of the words.
Yeah. Well, you probably also noticed that when I went to open it in Google Docs, it made a copy of it as a Google Doc. That will not happen if you do that with a Word doc, because they now have better integration with Office. So if I had a Word doc, which I don't think I do in here. Oh, wait. Yeah, I do. I put one in here. I don't know what is in here, but if I opened it, I can then open it in Google Docs, and it opens without copying. So it opens, has the text. It wasn't really formatted anyway, but then if I come back to here, it did not make a copy. It just made a docx. It tells me that, and then I can edit things. And any comments I actually made in Word come over here to Google Drive as well, because I know I made these in Word. So if you're ever interested in my personal writing, here's a bit of it. Don't look at it too hard because it's not good. But this is an example of Word. And then it also brings the comments over, which is pretty nice. But are there any other things you wanted to talk about or see, Kevin?
No, that's perfect. I mean, the share me, well, like I said, with the verification of email that was something essential that I didn't know that feature was there.
Yeah.
The email the email there, and they when I say something that I never received, I said, "Did you see the email? Yeah, open the email then." It's a nice feature to have.
Yeah, definitely. Well, if there's nothing else,
That's it.
I'm going to stop the recording. So anyone who's watching afterwards, thanks for watching. So I'm going to stop that.